clock out exactly at the end of my shift? Okay, by user Stardevil. Some context, I work overnights at a well-known gym franchise that I will not name. My typical shift is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Usually there is always supposed to be 2 people on night shift together, but lately my co-workers have been calling off a lot, causing me to be in the gym alone all night. My co-worker, let's call her Sam, comes in at 6 a.m. when I get off. Here's the problem, Sam doesn't usually come in on time, she is usually always 10 to 15 minutes late. So on to the problem. Since Sam comes in late, I tend to have to stay clocked in past 6 a.m. Additionally, since I'm usually alone at night, I can't get any important tasks done until Sam comes in. My boss noticed my time cards, and got very upset that I haven't been clocking out right at 6 a.m. He made me feel really crappy despite constantly being on the blunt end of all his scheduling messes. So I told him okay. I will leave exactly at 6 a.m. So that's what I've been doing. I've been leaving the gym entirely unattended until someone gets there, and most of the time, no one does for a while. So now members are confused, my manager doesn't know what to do considering he is the one who scolded me for staying past 6 a.m. He thought that I would just clock out and stay off the clock, but why would I do that? I was not going to take the fall for someone else consistently being late. He won't fire me or write me up because this is technically what he wanted. Want it done by the book? Fine, I'll follow every rule, by user atomic file _. So, I work at a company that prides itself on having a detailed, overly complicated policy manual for everything. We've got rules for rules, basically. My manager, let's call him Dave, is the kind of guy who loves micromanaging. He'd constantly hover over our shoulders, pointing out every tiny mistake we made, saying, if it's in the manual, you must follow it. One day, Dave sent me an urgent email asking me to finish a big project before the end of the day. Normally, I'd do it my usual way efficiently and with a bit of common sense. But Dave insisted that I strictly adhere to the manual since it was a high-visibility project and he didn't want any mistakes. Oh, Dave. You shouldn't have said that. I pulled out the manual and went full compliance mode. Every procedure, no matter how small, was followed to the letter. Normally, I'd skip pointless steps, like writing a detailed log for every 10-minute task. Not this time. I logged everything. Starting a document? Log it. Saving the file? Log it again. Changing font size? Yep, logged. 2 requests for approvals? Oh, absolutely. The manual says certain steps need managerial sign-off, so I emailed Dave at least 5 times throughout the day for approvals. Hey, Dave, just confirming font size 12 is acceptable? Please reply so I can continue. Hi, Dave, should I use blue headers or red headers as per policy section 14.3.2? 3 breaks were strictly enforced. Policy states we get 2 15-minute breaks and a 1-hour lunch. Normally, I'd work through a bit of lunch to get things done, but not today. At 12 o'clock sharp, I dropped everything and left my desk. I also spent 15 minutes at exactly 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock resting. For every department had to be involved. The manual said I needed sign-offs from IT, HR, and marketing for certain sections, even though they had nothing to do with the project. I looped them in with formal requests, dragging out the timeline. By the end of the day, the project wasn't finished. I spent so much time complying with the manual that I didn't even get halfway through. Dave was furious and asked why it wasn't done. I calmly explained that I followed every single policy and procedure in the manual, just like he instructed. I even showed him the email chain proving he'd approved my steps. After that, Dave stopped breathing down my neck and started letting me work how I wanted. Lesson learned, sometimes, the best way to fix a broken system is to show exactly how broken it is. Can't fill my water bottle with water I pay for? Okay, by user garlicbread _27. I'm in college, and live in the dorms, where I am required to have a meal plan. I have 19 meals per week. My degree requires lots of lab work, on the 11th floor of a building, and we wear lab coats. I love getting ice water after my lab, especially since I have to walk all the way across campus. My water bottle is insulated, so it keeps ice for a while, which I love. I go to fill my water bottle with ice, and an upper-level worker stops me. Worker, ma'am, no filling personal bottles here. Me, the workers do it all the time. Worker, it's in their contract. Me, okay. I bet not, but sure. I know workers get free food and beverages both on and off shift, and I always see them using and filling personal bottles. I don't know why I can't, their bottles can also be gross and unclean. Using a reusable bottle is more eco-friendly, anyway. My dining hall likes to be climate-friendly, but they use a lot of paper plates and plastic silverware, especially when they serve at least 2,000 people per day. So, I looked the worker in the face and filled my water bottle with a paper cup. It took so much longer and was more wasteful than if he had just ignored me. He shook his head and walked away. Now I fill my water bottle with no problems and enjoy my ice water whenever I want. Don't like the way I park? Fine, I'll follow the rules exactly, by user atomic file _ A couple of months ago, I had a run-in with the self-appointed HOA enforcer of my neighborhood. Let's call her Linda. For context, I don't live in an HOA community, but Linda likes to pretend we do. She's the kind of person who leaves passive-aggressive notes on cars, knocks on doors to complain about lawn heights, and calls the city for violations that don't actually exist. The issue started because I parked my car on the street in front of my house. It's perfectly legal, and I've been doing it for years without any complaints. But apparently, Linda decided that my car was an eyesore. One day, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper that said. It annoyed me, but I shrugged it off and kept parking where I always do. That wasn't good enough for Linda. The next time, she confronted me in person. Linda, I've told you before, parking on the street is inconsiderate. You have a driveway, use it. Me, it's legal to park here, and I'm not blocking anything. Linda, it doesn't matter. It's ugly and makes the neighborhood look bad. Park in your driveway, or I'll report you. That's when I decided, fine. If she wants me to park in my driveway, I'll park in my driveway, but I'll follow every single rule to the letter. You see, my driveway is small. If I park my car in it, it blocks the sidewalk. Technically, it's against city ordinances to obstruct the sidewalk. So the next day, I pulled my car right into my driveway, perfectly centered, and guess what? It completely blocked the sidewalk. It didn't take long for Linda to notice. She marched up to my door, red-faced and furious. Linda, you can't block the sidewalk. That's illegal. Me, oh, I thought you wanted me to park in my driveway. Linda, not like that. Park properly. Me, there's no other way to park in my driveway without blocking the sidewalk. Guess I'll have to park back on the street then. Her face was priceless. She sputtered for a moment before stomping off. Thinking that was the end of it, I parked back on the street. But no, Linda wasn't done yet. She actually called the city on me. A week later, a city inspector came by. He checked out the situation, saw that my car was legally parked on the street, and told me I was doing nothing wrong. However, he did mention that Linda had made several complaints about code violations in the neighborhood, and they were getting tired of her nonsense. After that, I didn't hear from Linda for a while until last week, when she started parking her car on the street in front of my house. So, I did what any good neighbor would do, I called the city and reported it. Turns out her car was slightly too close to a fire hydrant. She got a ticket. Malicious compliance never felt so sweet. We are working too fast? Okay, we will slow down for you, by user BikeCapper69. I recently found this sub and I think I have a great story for it. This happened about 2 years ago. I work in construction, but more specifically I cut concrete. A lot of people aren't familiar with my job, but all you really need to know is that I don't pour any concrete. I use big diesel and hydraulic powered saws to cut and remove it. I work at a relatively small company, 15 employees, and we are the company to use for concrete cutting and removal in our area. I was the first employee hired at this company and my bosses are amazing, they have been in the industry for 25 and 30 years respectively. We will call them Brad and Cody. They know what they are doing and they still get out and work in the field and will outwork any of our employees. We were awarded a no-bid contract at a very large facility to cut and remove a very large section of their outdoor slab because it had cracked. This was routine for us, we could do it in our sleep, but it was still a large project. The reason we were given the contract but not held to a number was because they wanted it done right and fast, and they knew that we were the guys to do this even though we aren't always the cheapest. The customer requested us to bring extra equipment and specialized saws just in case. Important later. The day comes that we are supposed to start and they wanted us on site at 6:30 am for a safety meeting. Brad and Cody went out while I stayed back to get my crews ready for the day before heading out to meet them. When I arrived at 8 am, they were still standing by their trucks just talking. I asked them how the safety meeting went and they said that no one had shown up yet. Finally they got there at around 9 am and didn't even acknowledge that they were late. We met the guy that was in charge of the project, his name was John. John said during the safety meeting that there would always be a few people around from his company to watch us while we worked. We figured it was weird but no big deal. We ran a routine safety meeting after and it was time to work. We got about a third of the project completed in one day. The entire time we were working there were no less than 25 people standing around watching us work. We kept joking with them to just set up bleachers, it would be easier to watch that way. They made us call it quits at 4 PM so they could go home. Right about this time we started to figure there was something up with these guys. They didn't care that we didn't get started until late and wanted us to end early, yet a big part of us being there was to get it done fast. Either way we figured we would still be able to get done in about 3 days and make record time for a project of this size, all while making a fair amount of money for ourselves. The next morning as we were getting ready to head out for the day, Brad received an email. It said, while we can tell that X company are master operators with their machines, we feel as if they are operating in an unsafe manner by running multiple machines at once and request that they slow down to maintain safe working conditions. They also didn't try to make sure our supervisors felt that they were safe throughout the day. Brad was pissed. We were called in to get things done fast and not once had we done a single thing that could be considered unsafe. When we got to the job that day for the safety meeting, Brad had changed from "screw these guys, they don't know anything about what we are doing" to "okay, we are too fast. We will slow it right down for them." At the safety meeting John, same guy who sent us the email, looked at us and said, "Okay, everyone knows what we are doing, let's get it done." He tried to end the safety meeting with that, but that's when my boss spoke up. He said, "Hold on, since no one is man enough to tell us in person and just want to hide behind their emails, let's get this straight. We are too fast and unsafe for you." John became visibly uncomfortable and stammered out, "Well, there was a lot of people standing around and watching you yesterday and I just felt that someone would get hurt if they decided to get closer to watch. I had set up safety cones with red danger tape strung between it and told no one to cross. We had taken proper safety precautions. If they didn't feel comfortable to have that many people watch, then don't have that many people standing, watching, and doing nothing." All Brad said was, "Okay, we will be real slow and if someone crosses our line, we shut the site down for an hour for another safety meeting." Time for the malicious compliance, we started up for the day. Something to note about our saws, tractors, and other heavy equipment is that we have the ability to turn up the idle, or in other words we can turn up or down the speed of the motors, so instead of everything moving normally and how it should, which is fast, everything is moving at turtle speed. Brad told us all that if we ever sped up our machines that he would kick us off the job, even Cody, his business partner. I was cutting with our saw while Cody was in the excavator to remove the pieces that I cut. Brad was in the skid steer to haul the pieces to the dump truck. I would cut the concrete into a 6x6 piece, which would normally take me about 20 to 30 minutes. It was taking upwards of 3 hours for one piece. After I would cut, Cody in the excavator would turn his machine on, slowly turn and stop. Extend his bucket. Stop. Lower the bucket. Stop. Tilt the bucket. Stop. Pick up the piece. Stop. Turn. Stop. Drop the piece. Stop. Shut off his machine. All without idling up. Then Brad would start his machine and repeat the same process to load into the dump truck. You get the point, it was painfully slow. After the first piece was ready to be pulled out and Cody started the process, John, who was just sitting on the sideline pale-faced, crossed my line to ask if we were really serious. At that point Brad screamed "shut down," and we all stepped away for an hour for a safety meeting. John crossed the line 3 times in the first day and 8 times total throughout the project. His employees never once crossed the danger line. Effectively, John was the only one he should have been worried about in his email about getting too close and being in danger. John kept saying, "No way, you guys are being serious, what happened to what you were doing yesterday? You were so much more efficient." Brad just said, "I have in writing that you felt unsafe, so for the remainder of this project we will be operating at a safe pace." It ended up taking us 3 weeks to finish at that horribly slow pace instead of 3 or 4 days at full speed. The best part? The head of the facility came out to see what was taking us so long. We showed him the email and he agreed with what we were doing. He told us he hates John and that he's insufferable to work around. He said that the success of this project is directly tied to John's yearly bonus. He asked how much we were charging them, and we told him that per piece of equipment and truck and saw that as one the site is being billed to them by the hour and that John had requested that we have nearly double the amount of equipment than we actually needed or used. The facility head just laughed and said, "Fantastic, I will make sure you are paid in full, don't go easy on us with the bill." That's how we maliciously complied our way into charging about $200,000 for a job that should have realistically only been worth about $45,000. I even got a solid $20,000 bonus because Brad and Cody are fantastic bosses and knew we made a killing on that job. Update. I felt like I wanted to clarify a couple of things after reading the comments. First, yes, John tried to get us to go back to our previous working rate, but he would only ever verbally ask. My boss kept telling him I need that in writing and you have a deal, hell might even save yourself some money while you're at it, but John either never understood what he was implying or really didn't want to send an email recanting his statement, believing he would look dumb for making a mistake. Second, this was a big project, bigger than what my part in it was. That being said, with how John was with us, I would seriously doubt every other aspect of the job went smooth for him. I bet they ended up with some profit but not nearly as much as they would have without John, meaning he still probably got a bonus, just a very small one. Third, how did they have so many people able to stand around and watch for 3 weeks and not work? Well, by the end of the third week there was probably only 10 people watching us by then, but this was a facility that has hundreds of people working there, so for 25 people at a time to sneak out for most of a day to watch us wasn't too big of a deal for them. They usually rotated, and if we saw someone one day, then we didn't usually see them again for about a week. Also, just another little satisfying part of the story I should have included was that Cody has had a saying since the very first time I worked with him. He says, "We aren't trying to retire off of this one single job, we are treating the customer fair, but fair isn't always cheap." After the facility head gave us the go-ahead to charge what was needed and not take it easy, Cody looked at us and said, "Yep, we are retiring off of this one." Obviously it was more of a joke, but the satisfaction I got from hearing him say that after knowing him for 10 years to be the guy who is extra fair will never be rivaled.